It was a calm and sunny Sunday morning in the sleepy Connecticut suburb of Fairhaven Heights, the kind of place where nothing bad ever seemed to happen. The air was crisp, kids rode their bikes along sidewalks cracked with age, and dogs barked lazily behind white picket fences. But that serenity was shattered when a neighbor at the Willow Creek Apartments noticed something that didn't belong. A dark trail of what looked like blood smeared along the walkway outside apartment 3B. She called 911 immediately. Moments later, the first responders arrived, expecting perhaps a domestic dispute or an injured resident. But nothing could have prepared them for the macabre scene that unfolded behind that modest apartment door. Inside the bathroom, 27-year-old Charlotte Winthrop lay dead, brutally murdered. Her throat had been viciously slashed, her body staged with eerie deliberation. The walls were splattered, and blood pooled under her like a grotesque halo. But it was what was left behind on the mirror that would haunt investigators and the public for years to come. Written in her own blood were the words, "I did it." What kind of person writes a confession in the blood of their victim? Was it a genuine admission or a twisted mind game? And who was this monster hiding behind the ordinary facade of the suburban landscape? Welcome to True Crime Hub. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We tell stories that expose the darkness lurking in everyday life, peeling back the layers of horror, grief, and resilience. Today, we're digging deep into the chilling case of Charlotte Winthrop, the killer who mocked investigators with a message in blood and the disturbing psychological trail he left behind. Charlotte Winthrop wasn't famous. She wasn't rich. She didn't have enemies. She was a regular woman trying to rebuild her life after heartbreak. A graduate student pursuing a master's degree in behavioral psychology at a nearby university, Charlotte had moved into the modest one-bedroom unit in Willow Creek Apartments just 2 months earlier, following a tough breakup with her boyfriend of 4 years, Kyle Reed. Friends described her as bright, compassionate, and fiercely independent. She was the kind of friend who showed up with a bottle of wine when you were going through a breakup and always remembered your birthday. Charlotte had dreams of becoming a clinical psychologist. She spent her evenings studying case files, working part-time at a mental health clinic, and journaling her thoughts as a form of self-care. But as much as she tried to rebuild, there were signs something wasn't quite right. Several weeks before her murder, Charlotte had confided in her best friend Jenna about feeling unsettled in her new apartment. "I know it sounds crazy," she wrote in a text message, "but sometimes I get the sense that someone's been in here when I'm not home." Jenna had urged her to report it to management or the police, but Charlotte brushed it off. Nothing had been stolen. Nothing was damaged. But sometimes her drawers seemed rearranged. Her bathroom mat shifted slightly. Her toothbrush wet when she hadn't used it. It was subtle enough to ignore, but persistent enough to disturb. And she wasn't alone. Other tenants at Willow Creek had noticed strange occurrences, too. Several reported hearing footsteps in the hallway at odd hours. One woman swore she saw a shadowy figure standing near the dumpster late at night, just watching. Another claimed that her door was unlocked one morning when she was sure she had locked it. No one could have known that behind all these small red flags was something far more sinister, a predator preparing for the kill. When officers entered Charlotte's apartment, they were immediately overwhelmed by the stillness. It was quiet, eerily so. No struggle appeared to have taken place in the living room or bedroom. It was the bathroom where they found her, lying lifeless in a pool of blood. The brutality of the attack was staggering. Her throat had been slashed from ear to ear, a deep, deliberate cut that suggested experience or practice. But what horrified officers and seasoned crime scene investigators alike was the message scrawled across the mirror above the sink. "I did it." Written in thick, congealed blood, the letters were shaky but bold, smeared with purpose. It wasn't a rushed act. It was a statement. This wasn't just a murder. It was a performance. The killer had taken his time. He had watched her bleed. He had staged her body. And then he had used her blood to write a message meant not just for investigators, but for the world. It was a psychological taunt, a chilling challenge. Catch me if you can. From the moment the mirror message was discovered, the case became a priority for local law enforcement. The FBI was brought in to consult, particularly with their behavioral analysis unit. This wasn't just a killer. This was someone who wanted to be known. The profile was clear, male, mid to late 30s, intelligent, possibly with a background in psychology or law enforcement. Highly organized, methodical, with an obsession for control. The fact that the killer didn't flee immediately, and instead took the time to pose the victim and leave a signature, suggested he enjoyed the process. What stuck out most was the method of writing. Using the victim's blood required proximity, patience, and a willingness to get messy, something many killers avoid. This man wasn't trying to cover his tracks. He was sending a message. As with most homicide cases, investigators first looked at those closest to the victim. The most obvious place to start was Charlotte's ex-boyfriend, Kyle Reed. Kyle had a motive, a difficult breakup, rumors of jealousy, and the fact that Charlotte had filed a temporary restraining order against him just months earlier after he appeared at her work and caused a scene. But Kyle had an airtight alibi. Security cameras confirmed he had been at his bartending job downtown for the entire night. His phone records backed it up. There was no physical evidence linking him to the scene. The investigation stalled briefly, until another lead came from an unexpected place. James Fielder was the building's property manager. Mid-40s, single, quiet. He lived in the basement unit and was known for keeping to himself. But several tenants had reported uncomfortable experiences with him. One woman recalled how he once entered her apartment without knocking, claiming he was checking the smoke detectors. Another tenant had moved out suddenly after telling friends she felt like someone was watching her in the shower. When police spoke with Fielder, he was calm, polite, even helpful. He claimed to be shocked by Charlotte's death. But detectives found his demeanor too polished, too rehearsed. Then came the break in the case. Inside Charlotte's bathroom vent, hidden behind the grate, was a tiny envelope. Inside were crude sketches, dark, haunting images of a woman in terror. One sketch clearly depicted a man holding a mirror smeared with blood. It was signed with a triangle enclosing an eye. Detectives searched Fielder's storage unit. Inside was a nearly identical sketchbook. Fielder's laptop was seized under a warrant. What forensic analysts found was beyond disturbing. Inside a hidden folder labeled Guests were hundreds of videos, footage from hidden cameras placed in vents, light fixtures, and even inside smoke detectors. Footage of Charlotte undressing, showering, sleeping. But it got worse. There was a folder titled I Did It. Inside were videos of the murder. The killer had filmed himself entering her apartment. He whispered to the camera. He described what he was about to do in clinical detail, as if narrating an instructional video. He attacked her, dragged her to the bathroom, positioned her body, and recorded himself writing on the mirror. It was not a spontaneous act. It was methodical, ritualistic. He was documenting his achievement. When the case went to trial, the media frenzy was overwhelming. Fielder's crimes were described as some of the most psychologically twisted in recent history. The defense argued he was mentally ill, unfit to stand trial. They cited narcissistic personality disorder, obsessive tendencies, and delusional thinking. But the jury saw the truth. This wasn't a man out of control. It was a man who wanted control. The evidence was irrefutable. After just 4 hours of deliberation, the jury found James Fielder guilty on all counts: murder, unlawful surveillance, stalking, and possession of child exploitation material. He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. But even in prison, his influence lingered. Online forums erupted with morbid fascination. A copycat emerged in Ohio, writing I did it on a victim's wall in lipstick. The darkness had spread. Charlotte Winthrop was not just a victim. She was a daughter, a friend, a student, and a human being with dreams and a future. Her death reminds us that evil often hides in plain sight. That predators wear masks of normalcy. That the very people we trust with access to our homes can be the ones who betray us. If you ever feel watched, followed, or unsafe, trust that feeling. Don't dismiss it. Your intuition might save your life. Charlotte's story is a reminder to listen, to speak up, and to never assume that monsters only exist in the dark. If this story chilled you, moved you, or made you think twice about safety, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to True Crime Hub. We uncover stories that need to be told, not just for justice's sake, but to prevent future tragedies. Comment below. Have you ever had an experience where your gut told you something was off? Remember, stay safe, stay aware, and always question the shadows.